In a distant corner of the galaxy, aboard the research vessel Celestial Horizon *, Nathan Cole stared at the glowing screen in front of him. His fingers tapped rhythmically on the console as he zoomed in on the edge of the map. It was a line. A simple, unbroken boundary that marked the end of human territory. Beyond it lay nothing but darkness, silence, and unanswered questions. The map didn't even show stars there, just an empty void that seemed to stretch forever. Everyone knew about this line, but no one talked about it. Not really. Nathan wasn't like everyone else. He had always been curious, the kind of person who couldn't let mysteries sit untouched. That curiosity had earned him a spot on the Celestial Horizon *, one of humanity's most advanced research ships. But now, as he sat alone in the dimly lit lab, his mind raced with thoughts about what might lie beyond the frontier. Why did the map stop so abruptly? What made that line so important? And why did people look at him like he was crazy whenever he asked? Still obsessing over that thing. A voice interrupted his thoughts. Nathan turned to see Clara Bennett leaning against the doorway, her arms crossed. Clara was the ship's lead engineer, known for her sharp wit and practical approach to problems. She didn't share Nathan's fascination with the frontier, but she often stopped by the lab to check on him, or, as she put it, to make sure he hadn't blown anything up. "It's not just a thing," Nathan said, gesturing toward the map. "It's a mystery, a huge one. Doesn't it bother you that we've explored half the galaxy, but no one knows what's out there?" Clara shrugged. "Not really. If it's off limits, there's probably a good reason. Besides, I've got enough to worry about keeping this ship running without wondering about some invisible line." Nathan frowned. He had heard that argument before, from almost everyone on board. The rule was clear: don't go past the human frontier. No one questioned it because no one wanted to risk finding out why it existed. But Nathan couldn't accept that. To him, the frontier felt less like a barrier and more like a challenge. Captain Laura Hayes walked into the lab just as Clara was leaving. Her presence filled the room, commanding respect without effort. She glanced at the map on Nathan's screen and sighed. "You're still looking at that, aren't you?" "Yes, Mom," Nathan replied. "I think we should know why it's there. We can't just ignore it forever." Hayes studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she said, "Curiosity is what drives discovery, Nathan. But sometimes it also gets people killed. There are reasons we don't cross that line. Reasons you wouldn't understand." Her words only fueled Nathan's determination. If anything, they made him more eager to uncover the truth. As Hayes left the lab, Nathan leaned back in his chair, staring at the map again. The line seemed to mock him, daring him to ask questions no one else would answer. Somewhere deep inside, he knew he wouldn't rest until he found out what lay beyond it, whatever the cost. Nathan spent the next few days poring over data, determined to find something, anything, that might explain the mysterious frontier. He analyzed readings from the ship's sensors, reviewed old mission logs, and even cross-referenced star charts from different eras. Most of the information was mundane, nothing more than routine scans of distant stars and planets. But one night, as he sifted through a batch of archived files, he noticed something unusual. It was a faint energy signature, barely detectable, coming from just beyond the human frontier. At first, Nathan thought it might be a glitch in the system, but the pattern was too consistent. The signal pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. It wasn't natural. It had to be artificial. Excited, he flagged the data and called Clara to the lab. "You're going to want to see this," Nathan said as soon as she arrived. He pointed to the screen, where the strange signal was displayed in sharp detail. "It's coming from past the line." Clara frowned, leaning closer to examine the data. "Are you sure about this? These kinds of readings could mean anything. Maybe it's interference from the ship's systems, or some kind of echo." "I've double-checked everything," Nathan insisted. "This isn't random noise. It's real, Clara. Something's out there." Clara hesitated, her practical nature warring with her curiosity. Finally, she sighed. All right, let's say you're right. What do you want to do about it? We investigate, Nathan said without hesitation. If we can send a probe into that area, we might be able to get clearer readings. Maybe even images. Clara raised an eyebrow. You realize crossing the frontier is against every rule in the book, right? If anyone finds out what we're doing. They won't, Nathan interrupted. Not if we keep it quiet. Look, I'm not asking you to break any laws. Just help me tweak a probe so it can handle whatever's out there. That's all. Clara stared at him for a moment, then nodded reluctantly. Fine. But if we get caught, you're on your own. Over the next several hours, they worked together to modify one of the ship's standard probes. Clara added shielding to protect it from potential hazards, while Nathan programmed it to follow a precise trajectory that would take it just past the frontier. They kept their voices low and their movements quick, knowing they were treading dangerous ground. When the probe was ready, they launched it under the guise of a routine experiment. Officially, it was meant to study cosmic radiation levels near the edge of human territory. Unofficial, it carried a secret payload. Instructions to transmit everything it detected back to the asterisk celestial horizon asterisk. The wait was agonizing. Nathan paced the lab, glancing at the clock every few minutes. Clara sat at her workstation, pretending to focus on other tasks, but occasionally stealing worried looks at the monitor. Hours passed before the probe finally sent its first transmission. The images it captured left them speechless. Floating in the void beyond the frontier were massive structures, alien constructs unlike anything humanity had ever seen. They were geometric, impossibly intricate, and seemed to glow with an inner light. One of the larger structures bore markings that resembled symbols, though neither Nathan nor Clara could decipher them. Then, just as suddenly as the transmission began, it cut off. The last thing they saw was a message written in perfect English. Welcome home. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Clara broke the silence first. What does that mean? Nathan shook his head, his mind racing. I don't know, but I think we just found something bigger than we ever imagined. The discovery of the alien structures weighed heavily on Nathan and Clara. They couldn't stop thinking about the message. Welcome home. It didn't make sense. Why would something so clearly not human write in English? And what did it mean by home? The questions gnawed at them, but they knew they couldn't share what they'd found. Not yet. Instead, Nathan decided to dig deeper. He spent hours combing through old files and classified archives, searching for anything that might explain the strange message or the structures. Most of the records were useless. Dry reports about trade routes, colony expansions, and routine maintenance logs. But then he stumbled across something unusual. Fragments of old transmissions buried in a forgotten database. The messages were cryptic and disjointed, sent from ships that had ventured too close to the frontier decades ago. Some described fleeting encounters with shadowy figures or glowing lights. Others contained warnings like, "Do not cross," and they watch. One entry stood out more than the rest. It mentioned beings called the Architects, though details were scarce. Whoever or whatever they were, they seemed connected to the frontier. Nathan shared his findings with Clara, who listened intently but remained skeptical. This is all second-hand information, she said after he finished explaining. These logs could just be rumors or hallucinations. People see weird things when they're scared. Maybe, Nathan admitted, but look at this. He pointed to a line in one of the logs. The Architects built us, guided us. We are their children. Clara frowned. Built us? Guided us? That sounds impossible. Does it? Nathan countered. We don't know everything about our history. Maybe there's truth to it. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Dr. Richard Monroe stepped inside, his sharp eyes scanning the room. Monroe was the senior scientist aboard the asterisk Celestial Horizon asterisk, known for his strict adherence to protocol and disdain for unnecessary risks. He glanced at the screen displaying the fragmented logs and raised an eyebrow. "What are you two working on?" "Just reviewing some old data," Clara replied quickly, closing the file before he could read it. "Nothing important." Monroe didn't look convinced. "I've heard rumors about your little project," he said, his tone icy. "Crossing the frontier isn't just dangerous, it's forbidden. You should remember that." "We're not doing anything wrong," Nathan said, trying to sound confident. "We're just curious." "Curiosity has a way of getting people killed," Monroe snapped. "Or worse. Those who have crossed the line never came back. And the few who did." He trailed off, shaking his head. "Let's just say they weren't the same." "What do you mean?" Clara asked, her voice quieter now. Monroe hesitated, as if debating whether to say more. Finally, he sighed. "Some came back changed. Different. Like they weren't entirely human anymore. Whatever's out there doesn't play by our rules. So I suggest you leave well enough alone." He left without another word, leaving Nathan and Clara alone with their thoughts. The warning lingered in the air, heavy and unsettling. Clara looked at Nathan, her expression torn between fear and determination. "He's right, you know. This could get us in serious trouble." "I know," Nathan said softly. "But we can't stop now. Not when we're so close to answers." Clara didn't argue. She knew there was no talking him out of it. Instead, she nodded reluctantly. "All right. But we need to be careful. If Monroe finds out what we're really up to, we're done for." As they returned to their work, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, not by Monroe, but by something far beyond the frontier. Something ancient, powerful, and waiting. Nathan and Clara knew they were treading dangerous ground, but the pull of discovery was too strong to ignore. They couldn't let Monroe's warning stop them, not when they were so close to unraveling the mystery of the frontier. Late one night, while most of the crew slept, they returned to the lab to plan their next move. The probe had given them a glimpse of what lay beyond, but it wasn't enough. They needed more, clearer images, better data, anything that could help them understand the structures and the eerie message they had received. "We need another probe," Nathan said as he stared at the schematics on the screen. "But this time, we'll send it deeper, closer to those constructs." Clara frowned, her hands resting on the edge of the table. "Deeper? That's risky. If anyone finds out." "No one will," Nathan interrupted. "We'll launch it during the next routine scan cycle. No one pays attention to those anyway. And this time, I'll program it to stay active longer. It can gather more data before it shuts down." Clara hesitated, chewing her lip. She wanted to argue, to remind him how dangerous this was, but she knew it wouldn't change his mind. Instead, she sighed and nodded. "Fine, but we're doing this my way. I'll add extra shielding and reroute its power supply. If it gets caught in some kind of energy field, it needs to survive long enough to send back something useful." For the next 2 days, they worked tirelessly, modifying the probe in secret. Clara reinforced its casing with layers of reflective material, hoping it would protect the device from whatever strange forces might exist beyond the frontier. Nathan programmed it to follow a zigzagging path, staying just within range of the ship's sensors while venturing closer to the alien structures. When it was finally ready, they waited for the perfect moment to launch. The opportunity came during a scheduled systems check. Most of the crew was busy running diagnostics, leaving the observation deck nearly empty. Nathan and Clara slipped into the control room, their movements quick and quiet. With a few keystrokes, they initiated the launch sequence. The probe detached from the ship and shot forward, disappearing into the void. As the minutes ticked by, they monitored its progress on a private terminal. The probe moved steadily toward the alien constructs, sending back streams of data. At first, the readings were chaotic, bursts of energy, fluctuations in gravity, and strange distortions in space-time. But then, just as it reached the closest structure, the transmission stabilized. The images it sent back were breathtaking. The construct loomed large on the screen, its surface covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and shimmer like liquid metal. Embedded within the design were symbols similar to the ones they'd seen before, glowing faintly in the darkness. Then, without warning, the camera feed switched to a new perspective. It showed the probe itself, as if something, or someone, was watching it. The view zoomed in, focusing on the device, and then the words appeared again. "Welcome home." Before either of them could react, the screen flickered. Static filled the monitor, followed by a burst of garbled audio. The sound was low and guttural, almost like speech, but too distorted to understand. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the transmission cut off. The probe was gone. What just happened?" Clara whispered, her voice trembling. Nathan didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the last frame of the video, the glowing symbols on the construct. Something about them felt familiar, like he'd seen them somewhere before. But where? "We need to tell someone," Clara said finally. "This is too big for us to handle alone." "No," Nathan replied firmly. "Not yet. We still don't know enough. If we go to Hayes or Monroe now, they'll shut us down. We have to keep going." Clara looked at him, fear and frustration warring in her expression. "Nathan, this isn't just about curiosity anymore. Whatever's out there knows we're here, and I don't think it's friendly." The next morning, Nathan and Clara were summoned to Captain Laura Hayes' quarters. They had hoped to keep their activities hidden a little longer, but it was clear someone had noticed. As they walked down the narrow corridor of the Celestial Horizon Clara shot Nathan a worried glance. "This is it," she muttered under her breath. "We're done for." Nathan didn't respond. His mind raced with possible explanations, but none of them felt good enough. When they reached the captain's door, he knocked lightly, and Hayes' voice called for them to enter. Inside, the room was dimly lit, with only a small desk lamp casting a soft glow. Hayes sat at her desk, her expression unreadable. Across from her stood Dr. Richard Monroe, his arms crossed and his face stern. "Sit down," Hayes said, gesturing to the chairs in front of her desk. Nathan and Clara obeyed, exchanging uneasy looks. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity before Hayes finally spoke. "I know about the probe," she said, her tone calm but firm. "And I know you sent it past the frontier." Nathan opened his mouth to protest, but Hayes raised a hand to stop him. "Don't bother denying it. I've reviewed the logs. What I want to know is why. Why would you risk everything, your careers, your lives, for something so reckless?" Clara shifted uncomfortably in her seat, but Nathan met Hayes' gaze head-on. "Because we needed answers," he said. "No one talks about the frontier. No one explains why it's there. But now we know there's something beyond it, something important. We can't just ignore that." Hayes studied him for a moment, her eyes narrowing slightly. Then she leaned back in her chair, letting out a long sigh. "You think this is new to me?" she asked. "I've known about the anomalies beyond the line for years. Every captain does. But there are reasons we don't cross it. Reasons that go back centuries." "What reasons?" Clara blurted out, unable to stay silent any longer. "Why does everyone act like it's some big secret? If there's something out there, shouldn't we at least try to understand it?" Hayes exchanged a glance with Monroe, who still hadn't moved or spoken. Finally, she turned back to them. "It's not my place to tell you everything. But I'll say this much. Earth's governments imposed the restriction after encounters. Encounters with beings far beyond our comprehension. Agreements were made, boundaries set. Crossing the frontier without permission isn't just dangerous. It could undo centuries of peace." "Peace?" Nathan scoffed. "What peace? If these beings are so powerful, why do they let us live in ignorance? Why send us messages like, 'Welcome home,' if they don't want us to know the truth?" Hayes' jaw tightened. "That's exactly the kind of question you shouldn't be asking. Whatever lies beyond that line, it's not meant for us. Not yet. Monroe stepped forward, his voice low and sharp. "Captain, this has gone far enough. These two have already jeopardized the mission. They need to be confined until we return to Earth." "No," Hayes said firmly, surprising both Nathan and Clara. They'd broken protocol, yes, but their intentions were noble. And if what they found is as significant as they claim, then maybe it's time we started asking questions ourselves. Monroe looked furious, but he didn't argue further. Hayes turned back to Nathan and Clara, her expression softening slightly. "I'm allowing you to continue your research, but under strict supervision. No more unauthorized probes. No more secrets. If you find anything else, you bring it to me first." "Understood." Nathan and Clara nodded quickly, relief washing over them. Hayes wasn't happy, but she hadn't shut them down completely. For now, that was enough. As they left the captain's quarters, Clara whispered, "Do you think she believes us?" "I don't know," Nathan admitted, "but at least we're still in the game." Little did they know, Hayes had already begun making plans of her own. Plans that would take the Celestial Horizon closer to the frontier than anyone had dared to go in centuries. The days following their meeting with Captain Hayes were tense aboard the Celestial Horizon Nathan and Clara tried to focus on their work, but the weight of what they'd discovered, and the captain's cryptic warnings, hung over them like a storm cloud. The crew seemed restless too, though no one could pinpoint why. Instruments that had functioned perfectly for months began acting strangely. Readings would spike without explanation, and equipment would shut down only to restart moments later. Even the ship's artificial gravity fluctuated, causing objects to drift slightly before snapping back into place. Clara noticed it first. "Something's wrong," she said one evening as she and Nathan reviewed data in the lab. "It's like the ship is resisting us." Nathan frowned, glancing at the console in front of him. A series of error messages blinked on the screen, none of which made any sense. "Maybe it's just interference from the frontier," he suggested. "We are closer than we've ever been." "Or maybe whatever's out there knows we're watching," Clara replied, her voice quieter now. She hesitated, then added, "Do you think those beings, the architects, are doing this?" "I don't know," Nathan admitted. "But if they are, they're not exactly subtle about it." The strange occurrences weren't limited to the ship's systems. Several crew members reported seeing shadowy figures moving through the corridors late at night. At first, most dismissed these accounts as tricks of the light or overactive imaginations. But when Dr. Monroe himself claimed to have seen something, a tall, indistinct shape standing at the end of a hallway, it became harder to ignore. One night, Nathan woke suddenly, his heart pounding. He wasn't sure what had startled him awake, but the room felt different, colder, heavier. As he sat up, he realized he wasn't alone. Standing near the wall was a figure, its form blurred and shifting, like smoke caught in a breeze. It didn't move or speak, it simply watched him. Nathan froze, unable to look away. The figure raised an arm, or what might have been an arm, and pointed toward the edge of the bed. There, glowing faintly on his skin, were markings, intricate patterns that matched the symbols they'd seen on the alien constructs. They pulsed softly, as if alive, sending a tingling sensation through his body. The moment passed quickly. The figure vanished, leaving Nathan alone in the darkness. Trembling, he turned on the light and examined the markings on his arm. They were real, etched into his skin as though burned there. He wanted to call Clara, to tell someone, but fear rooted him to the spot. What if no one believed him? What if they thought he'd gone mad? By morning, the symbols had faded, leaving behind only faint scars. Nathan told himself it had been a dream, a product of stress and exhaustion. But deep down, he knew better. Whatever had marked him wasn't human, and it wasn't done with him yet. When he finally confided in Clara later that day, she listened silently, her face pale. "This isn't just about curiosity anymore," she said after a long pause. "Whatever's happening, It's affecting you directly. We need to stop. Now." "I can't," Nathan replied, his voice firm despite the fear in his eyes. "Don't you see? That's why they brought me here. Those symbols, they mean something. I think the architects are trying to communicate with me." Clara shook her head, frustration mixing with concern. "You're talking like you trust them. How do you know they aren't using you? How do you know this isn't some kind of trap?" Nathan didn't have an answer. All he knew was that the pull toward the frontier was stronger than ever. The architect's message, the symbols on his arm, the whispers among the stars, it all felt connected. And whether it was a gift or a curse, he couldn't turn away now. Unbeknownst to either of them, Captain Hayes had begun making preparations. The Celestial Horizon would soon cross the line, not just to explore, but to confront whatever waited beyond. For humanity's sake, she hoped they were ready. Nathan spent hours poring over the symbols that had appeared on his arm, trying to piece together their meaning. He sketched them repeatedly in a notebook, comparing them to the images of the alien constructs they'd captured. Slowly, patterns began to emerge. The markings weren't random. They formed sequences, almost like sentences in a language he didn't yet understand. With Clara's help, he started decoding fragments, using algorithms to match the symbols to known linguistic structures. "It's not just a message," Nathan said one evening as they worked in the lab. "It's a story. Or maybe instructions." Clara leaned over his shoulder, studying the translations scribbled across the pages. Instructions for what? How to build something. How to talk to them. "I'm not sure," Nathan admitted, "but it keeps coming back to the same idea. We're connected to them. These symbols keep referring to us as descendants or creations." Clara frowned, her voice tinged with unease. "You mean they made us? Like humanity was created by these architects?" "It's possible," Nathan said, though even he sounded uncertain. "Or maybe they guided our evolution. Either way, it changes everything we thought we knew about ourselves." Their conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the ship's intercom. Captain Hayes' voice echoed through the corridors, calm but commanding. "Attention, crew. We are preparing for an unprecedented maneuver. Further details will follow shortly. Please remain vigilant and report any irregularities." Nathan and Clara exchanged worried glances. They both knew what this meant. The Celestial Horizon was going to cross the frontier. Hayes hadn't consulted them directly, but it was clear she had made her decision. Whatever lay beyond the line, humanity was about to face it. As the ship drifted closer to the boundary, strange phenomena intensified. Shadows flickered in the corners of rooms, and whispers filled the air. Soft, unintelligible murmurs that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Several crew members reported vivid dreams of standing before the alien constructs, feeling an overwhelming sense of belonging, as if they were returning home after a long journey. Others claimed to hear voices calling their names, urging them forward. Nathan felt it too. The pull was stronger now, almost unbearable. He found himself drawn to the observation deck, staring out at the void beyond the frontier. It no longer felt empty. It hummed with energy, alive and waiting. When he closed his eyes, he could see the constructs clearly, towering above him, glowing with warmth. He felt a strange familiarity, as though he'd been there before, not in this life, but in another. Captain Hayes joined him on the observation deck, her expression unreadable. "You feel it, don't you?" she asked quietly. Nathan nodded. "It's like they're calling me." "Us." Hayes sighed, leaning against the railing. "The architects view us as part of their design. A test, perhaps, or an experiment. According to old records, humanity was meant to evolve within its designated territory. Crossing the frontier prematurely disrupts that plan. So why are we doing it?" Nathan asked, turning to face her. "Because staying ignorant isn't an option anymore," Hayes replied. "If we don't seek answers, someone, or something, else might impose them on us. I won't let humanity stumble blindly into whatever fate awaits us." Her words stayed with Nathan as the ship approached the line. Lights dimmed across the vessel, and the hum of the engines grew louder, vibrating through the floor. Then, with a sudden lurch, the Celestial Horizon crossed the boundary. The world outside the windows changed instantly. Stars vanished, replaced by a swirling expanse of light and color. The alien constructs loomed larger than ever, surrounding the ship like sentinels. A voice resonated in everyone's minds, deep and resonant, speaking in perfect unison. "You have returned," it said. "Prove yourselves worthy." No one spoke, no one moved. Humanity's future hung in the balance, and the choice was theirs to make. The voice lingered in the air, echoing through the minds of everyone aboard the Celestial Horizon. It wasn't harsh or threatening, but its weight was undeniable. "You have returned," it repeated. "Prove yourselves worthy." Nathan felt his heart race as he stared out at the alien constructs, now glowing brighter than ever. They seemed alive, pulsating with energy that resonated deep within him. Beside him, Captain Hayes stood frozen, her face pale but resolute. The crew gathered on the observation deck, their expressions a mix of awe and fear. No one dared to speak. Dr. Richard Monroe broke the silence first. "This is madness," he shouted, his voice trembling. "We shouldn't be here. We're playing with forces we don't understand." "Quiet," Hayes snapped, her tone sharp enough to silence him. She turned to Nathan, her eyes searching his face. "What do they mean by 'prove yourselves'?" Nathan hesitated, his mind racing. He glanced at the notebook in his hand, filled with sketches of the symbols from his arm and fragments of translation. I think they want us to show them we're ready. That we've grown enough to deserve whatever comes next." "And if we fail?" Clara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. No one answered. The question hung heavy in the air, unanswered but impossible to ignore. Before anyone could decide what to do, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lights flashed red, and the hum of the engines grew erratic. Clara rushed to a nearby console, her fingers flying over the controls. "Something's interfering with our systems," she called out. "It's like they're testing us." Hayes moved quickly, issuing commands to stabilize the ship. "All hands, report to your stations. Engineering team, redirect power to critical systems. We can't let this destabilize us." But the interference only grew worse. Panels sparked, and monitors displayed chaotic streams of data. In the chaos, Monroe made a desperate move. He slipped into the engineering bay and began tampering with the ship's mainframe, attempting to shut down key systems. His plan was reckless, perhaps even suicidal, but he believed humanity wasn't ready for what lay beyond the frontier. If provoking the architects meant stopping them from advancing too far, he was willing to take the risk. Clara noticed his actions too late. "Monroe, stop," she shouted, running toward him. But before she could intervene, a surge of energy coursed through the ship, knocking her off her feet. Sparks flew from the console, and Monroe collapsed beside it, unconscious. Nathan acted quickly, rushing to help Clara, while others worked to contain the damage. As he pulled her to safety, he realized something crucial. The symbols on his arm had reappeared, glowing faintly. They pulsed in time with the ship's struggling systems, as if responding to the crisis. Acting on instinct, he pressed his hand against a damaged panel, letting the markings touch the metal surface. Instantly, the chaos subsided. The alarms stopped, the lights stabilized, and the hum of the engines returned to normal. Everyone stared in stunned silence as the alien constructs outside seemed to dim slightly, their glow softening. The voice spoke again, quieter this time. "You are resilient, but resilience alone is not enough." Hayes stepped forward, addressing the emptiness beyond the windows. "Tell us what you want from us," she demanded, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "If we're to prove ourselves, we need to know how." For a moment, there was no response. Then one of the constructs shifted, its surface rearranging into a new pattern. A beam of light shot out, enveloping the ship. Images flooded the crew's minds, scenes of humanity's history, both triumphs and failures, wars, discoveries, acts of kindness and cruelty, all played out in vivid detail. "They're showing us who we are," Nathan whispered, awestruck. "They want us to see ourselves clearly." Hayes nodded slowly, her expression grim. "Then let's give them something worth seeing." Turning to the crew, she raised her voice. "Everyone, listen carefully. From this moment on, every decision we make will matter. We're being judged, not just as individuals, but as a species. Let's show them we're capable of more than destruction." As the light faded and the constructs receded slightly, the crew exchanged uneasy glances. They didn't fully understand what was expected of them, but one thing was clear: humanity's fate rested in their hands. Whatever happened next, they would face it together, or not at all. The asterisk celestial horizon asterisk drifted silently among the alien constructs, surrounded by an eerie calm. The crew worked tirelessly to repair the ship's damaged systems, but the tension aboard was palpable. Everyone knew they were being watched, not just by the architects, but by something far greater, something that seemed to permeate every corner of the void. Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that their presence here wasn't a coincidence. The symbols on his arm burned faintly, a constant reminder of the connection between humanity and these ancient beings. Captain Hayes called a meeting in the observation deck, gathering the senior staff to discuss their next move. Nathan, Clara, and a handful of others stood around the large viewport, staring out at the glowing structures. Hayes broke the silence first. "We've been given a chance," she said, her voice firm but tinged with uncertainty. "A chance to prove we're ready for whatever lies beyond this point, but we need to decide what that means." Clara spoke up, her tone cautious. "What if we can't meet their standards? What if they decide we're not worthy?" "We don't have a choice," Nathan interjected. "If we turn back now, we'll never know why they brought us here, or what they expect from us." Hayes nodded slowly. "Nathan's right. Running isn't an option, but we also can't rush into this blindly. We need to show them we're capable of understanding and learning." As they debated, one of the constructs shifted again, its surface rippling like water. A beam of light shot out, enveloping the ship once more. This time, the images in their minds weren't historical. They were possibilities. Visions of humanity's future unfolded before them. Thriving colonies among the stars, peaceful cooperation with other species, technological advancements that defied imagination. But alongside these hopeful scenarios were darker ones. Planets consumed by war, civilizations collapsing under their own greed, entire galaxies left barren and lifeless. When the light faded, the crew was left shaken. Clara leaned against the railing, her face pale. "They're showing us what could be," she murmured. "Both the best and worst outcomes." "They're testing us," Nathan said, his voice steady despite the weight of the revelation. "They want to see which path we'll choose." Hayes straightened, her expression resolute. "Then let's make it clear. We choose growth over destruction, cooperation over conflict. If they're judging us, let's give them a reason to believe in us." Over the next several hours, the crew worked together like never before. Engineers repaired damaged systems, while scientists analyzed data from the constructs. Even those who had doubted Nathan's curiosity earlier pitched in, united by the shared goal of proving humanity's potential. Dr. Monroe, still recovering from his collapse, remained silent, watching from the sidelines with a mixture of guilt and awe. Finally, Hayes addressed the architects directly, standing near the viewport as if speaking to the constructs themselves. "We are flawed," she admitted. "We've made mistakes, caused harm, acted selfishly. But we're also capable of change, of kindness, of hope. Give us a chance to grow, and we'll honor the trust you've placed in us." For a long moment, there was no response. Then, the constructs began to glow brighter, their surfaces shifting into new patterns. The voice returned, resonant, and calm. You have chosen wisely. Humanity will be allowed to expand, but cautiously. Follow the path we set, and you may join the greater community of the cosmos. The constructs started to recede, fading into the void. As the celestial horizon turned back toward human territory, Nathan felt a strange mix of relief and unease. They had been given a second chance, but the responsibility was immense. Whatever lay ahead, humanity would have to tread carefully or risk losing everything. Hayes approached him as the crew dispersed, her expression thoughtful. "This isn't the end," she said quietly. "It's just the beginning." As the celestial horizon made its way back toward human territory, Nathan stood alone on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The alien constructs had vanished, leaving behind only the faint glow of their presence in his mind. The symbols on his arm had faded once more, but their meaning lingered, a reminder of what humanity had discovered and the weight of the choice placed before them. Clara joined him after a while, leaning against the railing beside him. "Do you think we made the right call?" she asked softly, breaking the silence. "Trusting them, I mean." Nathan hesitated before answering. "I don't know if it was about trust," he said finally. "It was about showing them we're willing to try, to be better. That's all anyone can ask for, isn't it?" Clara nodded slowly, her gaze fixed on the endless expanse of space. "Still, it feels like we've been handed this huge responsibility, and we barely understand it." "Maybe that's the point," Nathan replied. "They didn't give us all the answers because they want us to figure things out for ourselves, to grow into whatever role they think we're meant to play." Captain Hayes entered the room moments later, carrying a tablet with updates from Earth Command. She looked tired but determined, as though carrying the weight of the entire mission on her shoulders. "The Architect's message has been relayed to Earth," she announced. "Governments are already debating how to handle this. Some want to push forward aggressively. Others think we should stay exactly where we are." "What do you think?" Clara asked. Hayes sighed, setting the tablet down on a nearby console. "I think humanity needs time. We've been given a chance to expand cautiously, to learn without rushing headlong into danger. But patience isn't our strong suit. There will be those who see this as an opportunity to grab power, to claim new territories and resources. If we're not careful, we could undo everything we just fought for." Nathan frowned, turning to face her. "What happens if people ignore the Architect's rules? What if they cross the line again, without permission?" "I don't know," Hayes admitted. "But I doubt the Architects would tolerate defiance. Whatever they are, they're clearly watching, and they won't hesitate to intervene if they feel threatened." The thought hung heavy in the air, unspoken but undeniable. Humanity's future depended not just on exploration or discovery, but on restraint, a concept that had always been difficult for their species to grasp. Over the next few days, life aboard the celestial horizon began to return to normal, or as close to normal as it could be after such an experience. Crew members talked openly about what they'd seen and felt, sharing theories and fears alike. For many, the encounter had changed something fundamental within them. They no longer saw themselves as conquerors of the galaxy, but as part of something much larger and more complex. When the ship finally docked at a human outpost near the frontier, Nathan and Clara were among the last to disembark. Reporters and officials swarmed the docking bay, eager for details about the mission. But neither Nathan nor Clara spoke to them. Instead, they walked quietly through the crowd, lost in their own thoughts. As they parted ways, Clara turned to Nathan one last time. "Whatever comes next, promise me one thing." "What's that?" he asked. "That we don't lose sight of why we started this," she said firmly. "Curiosity brought us here, but humility is what will keep us alive." Nathan smiled faintly, nodding. "Agreed." He watched her walk away, then turned his gaze skyward. The frontier was invisible from here, but he could feel it, a boundary between what humanity knew and what it still had to learn. Somewhere deep inside, he knew the architects were waiting, watching to see if humanity would rise to meet the challenge. For now, the map ended at human territory. But for the first time, Nathan believed it wouldn't stay that way forever.